Gather round, dads, it's time for a tale. Hand me a book and a warm pint of ale. Let's discuss writing and the literary gods with Dan Roberts on the Dadlit Pod.
Welcome to the Dadlit Pod, the literary podcast for people who know. We drink to those who gave their all of old. Then down we roar to score the rainbow's pot of gold. A toast to the host of those we boast, the United States Air Force. I am joined by United States Air Force veteran uh, Derrick. Sorry, Derrick. Derrick Jackson. Derrick Jackson joined the United States Air Force. He was a jet engine specialist, which with some planes that have achieved some prominence as of late. And he was a special agent with the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, which I'm really excited to talk to him about. His first assignment was with the criminal investigators at Tyndall Air Force Base and Osan Air Force Base in the Republic of Korea. He eventually volunteered to join OSI's Special Mission Branch and provided counterintelligence services for Air Force Special Operations Command, which I'm also excited to talk to him about. And he worked in the Protective Service Department at Bolling Air Force Base in DC, where he provided security for dignitaries. And then up, he left after 21 years of service, and he is now a fiction author. His debut novel, Shadow One, is part of the Shadow One series and was released in 2024. And he also has a second book coming out called The Raven Shadow, Shadow One, Volume Two by Derrick Jackson. Derrick, welcome. Did I get your bio right?
You got it. Perfect. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate the
You're
invitation.
you're you're an astonishingly I always whenever we have veterans on here, they always have resumes that are astonishingly long and impressive. Which is like it's like, well, I want to make sure we get that all in there because there's a lot of cool stuff, and particularly considering you're a thriller author.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, being a thriller author is the one thing that I didn't plan on becoming.
Really?
Really.
So well, let's start out. Let's start out. I'm going to ask you about all the OSI stuff
Okay.
because I took in high school a course called America in Conflict
hmm
and with a gentleman by the name of John Chapin who had a master's in economics from MIT, but decided he was just going to die teaching high school American history courses. And he pointed out that there is one job where you wear the uniform that is not your uniform when you're in the field, and that is OSI. Is that true that you could wear uniforms undercover that are not your uniforms in a military capacity?
Typically, when you're an agent in OSI and you're doing investigative work or counterintelligence work, you don't wear a uniform at all.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
right. Normally you would wear suits every day,
Hmm.
or sometimes you would dress down to maybe some regular street clothes, depending on what you're doing. But if you're doing investigative work, you don't wear uniforms. However, if you are deployed to certain parts of the world doing certain types of activities in certain active war zones,
Yeah,
you could wear uniforms. But when I was with the Special Missions Branch, as you mentioned, assigned with the Special Operations Command, there were no uniforms. We would try our best to blend in with the local populace of wherever we were at that time.
that's interesting. My listeners to the podcast will know that part of the reason I started the podcast was that my uncle Billy, who was in the Air Force, he was an
Okay.
MP in the Air Force. He reads one author, and that's Tom Clancy, and his Air Force Times. And I thought fundamentally, the preeminent dad lit reader would read only those two things. So it's interesting. But let's get into let's talk about what got you into the Air Force. Why'd you decide to become uh, a member of the Air Force?
Dan, that's a really good question. So I enlisted in the Air Force right after high school. But if I can go back a
Hmm.
little bit before that,
Hmm.
whenever you enlist in the military, you have to take the ASVAB test, right?
Hmm.
So I took the ASVAB when I was in 11th grade only to get out of class. I had no ambition, no thoughts at all of going in the military. I went to go take the test just so I didn't have to go to class and then didn't think about it anymore. And then my senior year, I'm playing sports. I play football. Football season's over, and I hear a lot of my friends saying, "Oh, I'm doing this. I'm going to this school." And I'm looking around like, I've been thinking about football and girls for the past 3 or 4 years. That's all I was concentrating on. Now I've gotta figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. And my cousin, my first cousin, his father at the time was in the Air Force. And we were talking, and he said, "Well, I think I'm going in the Air Force." And it took me about 2 seconds to say, "Me too." And that, and in that 2 seconds, I made the best decision of my life when I was 17 years old. And
So when was that you went in?
that my cousin went in.
No, that you went in.
Oh, I graduated high school in June '93, and in September '93, I was in basic training.
Oh, so you've been in there for a while.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
retired now. Definitely retired now.
But for those who don't know, Derrick looks very young
Oh.
on my screen,
Appreciate
whereas
no, I
whereas I look very old. Uh, but yeah, no, that's terrific. So you went in '93 and you started your career. And when you went in, did you know what you wanted to do?
um I wanted to be somewhere around airplanes. When I was a kid,
Hmm.
like other kids my age, I watched Top Gun. I fell in love with jets. I didn't want to go in the Navy because I didn't want to be on a ship for that long. So I decided, well, let's try the Air Force. And I knew there was no way I could be in the Air Force and not somehow be connected to jets. And so the ASVAB test that I took in 11th grade that I was just taking just to get out of school, it it came back around. So now I'm talking to the recruiters and they said, "Oh, well, your scores are high enough. You can do this, this, and that." And
Oh.
one of those was to be a jet engine specialist. And so that's what I chose because I wanted to be somewhere around airplanes. And so after the initial basic training, I went to technical school in Texas for I think it was 4 or 5 months. And they just teach you the basics of jet engines, the jet engine theory, different parts of the engines. Uh, and after that, I went to my first assignment at Dover Air Force Base. And I'm blessed because I did work on the flight line at that point. I was working in the engine back shop where we were tearing the engines down, inspecting them, and rebuilding them, and then we ship them back out. But at Dover, you may know that the home of the C-5, the biggest airplane in the Air Force. And I did that for 4 years, and I was trying to PCS and go to Japan. But when I was
Mhm.
filling out my sheet, I noticed there was an opening at Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii. And so I thought,
That's a
I'm
nice Air Force base.
right, I'm never gonna get Hawaii, but I just write it down anyway. And 3 months later, I get a phone call and they said, "Hey, you going to Hawaii?" I was like, "What? I'm going to Hawaii?" Never thought it would happen, but it
Mhm.
happened. And that's where I spent the next 4 years. And now I moved from the back shop to the actual flight line. Where we're actually doing the maintenance on the airplanes. And at that point, it wasn't just C-5s. We also were working C-17s and 141s and pretty much any type of transit aircraft that came through. So we had to be fully qualified on three different types of airplanes because you
Mhm.
can work all three planes, in the same day. And so at that point, though, is when I started to think about my future. I really enjoyed what I was doing, but what was going to come next? Did I want to continue to work on airplanes, or was there something else that I think I may have a calling for? And that's when I started to realize I was really interested in federal law enforcement.
Mhm.
And the first thing I did is I went to a recruitment briefing from the FBI. They came to the base, and I sat through that, and I was like, "Man, it sounds really interesting." But I had just gotten to Hawaii and I had to do 4 years. I just no way I could get out of that. And so I started thinking, well, what else could I do? And that's when I started to go to school to work towards my degree in criminal justice. And the opportunity of a lifetime was staring me right in the face. Within the Air Force, there's a federal law enforcement agency. It's called
Hmm.
OSI, the Office of Special Investigations. And so I talked to them, and they said, "You got to finish your 4 years first." So again, I had to place it on the back burner and just, do my best, to complete as many classes as I could towards my degree. Did my 4 years in Hawaii and came back to the CONUS to Tyndall Air Force Base, and I was working F-15s at that point. As soon as I got there, I got on a phone, called OSI, and they said, "Well, come back in a year. You have to be here for a whole year before you can apply." Okay. So my year was up, and I got nervous, and I was thinking, okay, I've been waiting for 5 years to get to this point. Now I can actually, put in an application. And I got nervous and I started hesitating. And I think I waited probably another month and a half before I built up the nerve to actually go over there because I was so afraid that, I could get crushed. What I've been planning on and dreaming about for the past, 5 years could end in a moment. But I finally built up the nerve, went over, put in my application. That process for me, it took about 6 months. For some, it takes longer. Some people get through a lot faster, but for me, it took 6 months. They go back through your past 10 years of your life, talk to people that
That they
you don't
do.
remember, talk to the neighbors you may not have gotten along with, to
Mhm.
make sure you're gonna be able to get that, your top secret clearance, and then a suitability test to see if you're the type of person that they want in the organization. So after that was complete, I got notification that I was accepted, and 2 weeks later, I was in Georgia at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center,
Mhm.
and that was that was you know that had its own challenges, good
Yep.
times, bad times, but it's basically a police academy for federal agents. So it's not
Mhm.
just OSI, ATF, most federal law enforcement agencies are there besides the FBI and the DEA who have their own academy.
Mhm. So basically, this is a thing that I think is really funny. People that end up writing books are the type of people who do a lot of work just so they get the opportunity to do more work.
Yeah.
Which sounds like you did.
Yeah.
So then you became a federal law enforcement officer
hmm
in the Office of Special Investigation. What do you do in the Office of Special Investigations once you're there? Which I imagine would have been about 1999, right?
This was 2004. So I
Oh,
did
2004. Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
So I joined in 93 and I did 10 years as a mechanic. And then it took about 6 months to go through the process. So now we're in 2004.
Hmm.
So I go to Flexi for I think 5 months for training. And they send me right back to Tyndall Air Force Base, which was a bit weird because I was there as a mechanic for a year and a half. Then I come back as an agent and I'm wearing suits every day. And people who know me are looking at me a little strange, like, were you an agent this whole time undercover? So,
Well, yeah, they would think that. Yeah.
yeah, I kind of lost a few friends. It's okay.
They were just making trouble anyway.
They'll be all right. They'll be all right. And so your first 12 months as an agent is a probationary time. And
Yeah.
so there are certain things that you have to experience, certain things that you have to show your proficiency in, whether it's processing crime scenes, doing different types of interviews, being able to write certain types of reports. Uh, but life as for me, I started as just a basic criminal investigator special agent, responding to allegations of sexual assault, running
Mhm.
theft investigations. That's also a different part of the office that did counterintelligence, but I wasn't involved in that at that point. Uh,
Mhm.
at this point, I was just struggling to learn how to do my job, struggling to learn how to dress appropriately. It didn't feel right because I've been wearing uniforms so long, and just trying to find my way. I was there for about 10 months, and then I got an assignment to Osan Air Base in South Korea. and the 12 months there seemed like 2 years. The ops tempo was so fast, you know. Uh, couldn't
W-
believe some of the stuff that we were doing.
it's funny you bring it up. I think, man, he probably had to deal with so many OUIs. So what were you doing out there? Like, what is an OSI officer do?
Well, it depends on where you are, and
Hmm.
within OSI, you can have different specialties. So you
Yeah.
can be a criminal investigator, like I said, you responded to you're doing theft investigations. You can do some base level fraud. Uh,
Hmm.
we have certain people who are sexual assault. Um, well, everybody's trained to do sexual assault, I will say
Yeah.
that. Then you have certain people who have specialties where they can go into being a polygrapher. Some people go into the specialty to be a tech agent, the guys who install the hidden cameras and microphones and all that
Hmm.
stuff. Uh, and then what I did after my time in Korea is I joined the Special Missions branch, where I was a counterintelligence agent attached to Special Operations Command. Uh, the name kept changing. Before I did it, it was called the AST, the Anti-Terrorism Specialty Team. By the time I got there, it became the Special Missions Branch. And I think now it's changed back to the Anti-Terrorism Specialty Team. It probably keep changing. But basically, because of what we were doing that was so different than what the the rest of OSI was doing, we got a lot of additional tactical training, a lot of
Hmm.
training with the Special Operations Command soft forces that were deploying forward because we needed to be able to, speak the same language, be able to hang with them on those missions. Uh, and so the book starts actually, or even the first book, Shadow One.
Yeah.
It's a fictional story, but it does follow my career, my recruitment into OSI, my first 2 years. About 65% of that book actually happened in some way. I did,
Hmm.
of course, change the names around, and I took some of the investigations and some of the weird circumstances that happened. Just kind of mixed it up a little bit, and then just add a little bit of dramatic flair to it to make it a really good story.
Hmm. And so a lot of Shadow One was inspired by your personal experience.
Yeah, absolutely. The
Mhm.
main character is Devin, really close to my name, right? It was I also have a nephew named Devin as well, but
Yes.
yeah, it was I wasn't expecting this when I first started writing, but it was a challenge.
Is his
Uh,
name Devin Maxon?
it- it's actually Devin Jackson.
Oh.
Yeah, it was challenging writing for that
Yeah.
character because it's based off of me, but it's not
Yes.
me.
Yeah.
And I wanted to write it in a way that people could see that I knew what I was talking about. I did
Hmm.
experience these things, and I wanted to be careful not to put too much trade craft into it. I didn't want to make it a police procedural novel,
Yep.
but I wanted to put enough in there so you understand. Okay, yeah, he has that experience. It is I can see, he knows what he's talking about.
Yep.
But when I was writing for that character, it was challenging because I didn't want to present him as being perfect.
Hmm.
When you see James Bond, when we meet him, he's already 007. When you
Hmm.
meet, Jason Bourne, he's already Jason Bourne. But when you meet Devin Jackson, he's just Devin. He's just this guy who's trying his best to get off probation. He's trying his best just to solve his cases, and he the harder he works, the more he pushes to be a better agent, the more mistakes he seems to make. And in the
Hmm.
beginning, there's not a lot of people around that want to help him out. But when
Hmm.
he gets to Korea, he ends up with a group of really good young agents around his age who have kind of experienced what he was going through at that time, and
Hmm.
they kind of take him under his wing, and he still makes mistakes. And in the book, he and his partner Al Sparks kind of just going out on base and just introducing themselves to people, so that people will feel comfortable coming and talking to them to report. criminal activity or suspected criminal activity. And
Uh,
what they didn't know that the people they were meeting were involved in a drug smuggling ring that was connected to a human trafficking ring. And those people, obviously, when they
they
see the
always go
badge,
together.
right, right. So now the bad guys know who they are, but they had no idea that these people were the bad guys.
Yep.
And so the hunters become the hunted, and they have to figure out who in the world is doing this. How is all this, intertwined together? And so it is that at that point where we start to see him becoming who he's destined to be.
Hmm. And so you've now written a second book. What's
Mhm.
that one about?
Well, the second book is called The Raven Shadow, Shadow One Part Two, and
Hmm.
again, it kind of follows my career as an OSI agent. So when I left Korea, I went to Herbert Field, began my the next 4 or 5 years as in counterintelligence. So the second book picks up a year and a half after the end of the first book, and because of some tragedies that Devin faces in the first book, he is not the same person in the second book.
Hmm.
As I said earlier, he's not 007, he's just Devin. But by the time we get to the second book, you can start to see that change is starting to happen with him. And that's
Hmm.
going to be some things that he go through in the second book, and he's going to become that person that you expect him to be right before your eyes.
And so this sort of follows your second phase, which is when you were doing the counter intel
Right,
aspects of the job.
right. So,
Interesting.
so my team, when I got there in 2006, I believe it was, yeah, the team was brand new, and
Hmm.
we had to figure out how we were going to work with the the soft units on the base that have been doing this for a long time. They really don't want anybody else to be involved with because they know what they're doing. We don't need you, but uh, some of the times they did need us, and so we had to go through a lot of additional tactical training, a lot of shooting, a lot of driving, a lot of crashing cars, just to
Hmm.
to improve, our skills so that we could be ready to handle what we needed to handle, if necessary downrange. And so what we would do is we would go out and meet with these units, figure out where they were planning on going, over the next year or so. And we would go to those places in advance of the actual mission. And we were do our best to figure out, where the best places for them to stay, whether the best routes, the safest routes for them to travel,
Hmm.
who are people that we develop as contacts that we could pass along to them. We'd come back to the States and then pass that threat information to the soft units. And depending on where they were going and the level of threat, our team would potentially deploy with them. And so
Hmm.
that while they were doing their job, we were a couple layers back, trying to detect anyone who was actually watching them. So more of
Hmm.
a threat detection, counter surveillance type role.
Hmm. So like sort of like the counterintelligence corps of old.
Oh
If
yeah,
there's
oh yeah.
yeah, yeah. If there's an equivalent. Yeah. No, that's very cool. And I imagine you got to see a lot of special places.
I did. And in 4.5 years, I traveled to, I think, 20 countries during that
Yeah.
mission.
What was your favorite and what was your least favorite and why?
Let's see. I think one of my favorites was one of my two favorites.
Yes.
Colombia. I went to Colombia a few
Hmm.
times, and um, really liked the culture. And because I went a few times, I started to learn my way around, and I got a chance to practice my Spanish a little bit. And I was really familiar with the people working at the embassy, so there's a bit of a comfort level, traveling there. And the other place is Ethiopia. I
Hmm.
only went there once, but the history. I got a little downtime. I did a little sightseeing, and just the history that I learned about that I had no idea about, in the couple of days that I was there. So I think those were my two favorite places. Uh, what place
Yeah.
did
What
I
was your
not like? So,
probably
uh,
Afghanistan?
well, no, I think I'm gonna say Bangladesh, to be honest with you.
Bangladesh. Yep.
Bangladesh. it
My wife used to live in Bangladesh and
really.
work there. Yeah, she didn't like it either.
Yeah, it's a little eye-opening. Yeah,
It's rough. It's rough. Yeah. It's in
yeah,
rough shape.
yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
wet. Very wet.
Very wet, and I was flying on this. We were flying from a city out to a smaller airport, and that's the first time I had been on a plane when people were smoking cigarettes.
Oh
Yeah, I don't like this.
so you did that, and
Mhm.
when did you also used to do diplomatic security as well, correct?
Yeah, so as part of our training, we we were doing that even when I was at Herbert Field in Florida. So
Hmm.
depending on who was coming through, it could have been the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, or the Secretary of the Air Force, or the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, or the SOCOM commander, and we would, augment the security or take over the security while they were
Hmm.
visiting those areas. So we were trained for that. And after my assignment at Herbert Field, uh, I was told I was going to DC. I didn't want to go, but when I heard I had to go, I started making some phone calls, sending some
I know.
emails to
It's
see
the
if I
worst.
could
I
get,
live here too.
yeah, uh, the the PSD, the security detachment at Bowling Air Force Base, where we protected foreign dignitaries.
Mhm.
So went into that, uh, but I only did it for a couple of months. So,
Oh,
any
okay.
foreign dignitaries coming in, it could be a foreign minister of defense or a foreign chief of staff of the Air Force, or we protect them while they were, not just in DC but within the states.
Hmm.
So I did that for a couple of months, and then one day my boss called me into the office and said, "Hey, what do you think about going up to Andrews? 15 minutes up the road." I didn't want to go at all. I was trying to I was trying to stay away from Andrews, but they told me they needed a superintendent for the fraud unit. And I
Oh,
thought about it for
nice.
like a day or two, and I always try to stay away from fraud because I thought it was boring. And I've been, doing all this fast-paced, high speed, all this stuff for the past, 6, 7 years. I don't want to go to fraud because it's slow, it's gonna be boring. But I thought about it for like a day or two, and then I accepted it. And so initially, I started out as the superintendent and of the fraud unit, which is procurement fraud and base level fraud.
Hmm.
And then after about a year and a half, we separated, and I became the branch chief of the base level fraud. And that became probably one of the best assignments of my life.
Yeah, it's basically an inspector general type position, right?
Well, we got into a lot of contract fraud. So
Yeah.
so any Air Force contract that was awarded out of the Pentagon, whether it's stealth fighters or bombers or anything that the Pentagon awarded, we would investigate any type of fraud with that, being right up the
Hmm.
road to Andrews. Plus, we had to cover Andrews and Bowling and a couple of other bases. So we had a large area of responsibility, millions and millions of dollars of potential fraud with these contracts that were awarded, and it forced me to really learn my job because at that
Hmm.
time I had some agents on the team who had been working for years, and they knew the job way better than I did. You know, I could teach you how to drive this car really fast, but I don't know really that much about fraud. So it took me about a year to get up to speed to get my fraud certification, and then at that point, I woke up one morning and all I was thinking about was fraud schemes. I couldn't understand it, but it started to make sense all of a sudden, and it became, a really rewarding assignment for me.
Well, that's terrific. What was your biggest bust? Or if you can't talk about it, that's okay. I understand.
I'll just say the way we approached it, some people didn't like it because, as I said,
Yeah.
they just used to, it's fraud investigations. You sit at your desk and read contracts. Well, that wasn't my experience. My experience was moving fast. So I let my team, we were doing undercover work,
Yeah.
we were sending people undercover into different businesses that we thought were, defrauding the Air Force. And that's how we work with the local police department and SWAT teams. And we're raiding houses and everything else, taking in the evidence. And that's kind of how we approach it.
That's awesome. So you eventually left though, and you've retired.
hmm
And what are you doing now?
So I retired in 2014, and
Much deserved.
I appreciate it. 21
Yeah,
years.
21 years.
I think I was ready to go. I thought I was ready to go.
Yeah.
And so I moved to North Carolina and I got a job with a uh, pharmaceutical company doing corporate investigations. And so if
Interesting.
I wanted to, just challenge myself again to see if I can go from, thinking as a government investigator to as a corporate investigator, different mindset. And it was a challenge that, I was happy to accept. And worked with a lot of good people, learned, another way of doing things, another way of thinking, another approach. And the company that I worked for was a big company, but it was a British company. And
Hmm.
so we would, meet with those guys, maybe once or twice a year to do like joint training and just learning the way that the British uh, interview people, the way they look at their investigations, it was completely different from the way we did it. Because we were
Hmm.
like, let's kick the door in and, interrogate some people, figure out what happened. And they took, a completely different approach to it. And at first, I was a little bit hesitant. I thought they were kind of soft, to be honest with you. But then it really started to make sense. I was like, I could definitely see the benefits in this. Yeah.
So now you're writing books, or what'd you do after that? Are you still down there hanging out and doing that work?
No, I'm in Virginia now. I work for the federal government as an
Welcome
investigator.
back.
Yeah, back in the government, but it's a little bit, a little bit more slower paced at this point. But
Yeah.
when I uh when I was working in corporate investigations, I had a lot more free time,
Hmm.
and I wasn't used to it. You know, and I was trying to figure out what am I gonna do, and I started painting. Never in my life did I think I'd paint, but I started painting for like 2 or 3 years, and
Hmm.
then I started thinking. I was talking to a good friend of mine, who is the inspiration for my partner in the book. He and I were stationed together in Korea. We talked frequently, and we were just laughing about some of the cases that we had, and just thinking back to when we were going through it. And we would always say, one day somebody's going to write a book about this because no one would ever believe all this crazy stuff. And we would joke around about it. And I didn't think I would be the one to actually do it until we kept talking about it. I was like, I think I could do this. And looking at the different types of reports of investigation from criminal investigations to counterintelligence to fraud investigations to uh, now I'm back in the government. It's different types of reporting and writing styles that aren't necessarily your voice and your own style, but you're learning along the way. And you can incorporate the parts that you like into your own style. And so I kind of challenged myself to do it. And I wrote the first outline, which ironically, the first outline is actually the second book.
Hmm.
And so after that, I let a couple people read it, and they told me how to really get story, but I didn't feel that that was the appropriate place to start. And so I wrote the outline for the first book. And the feedback I got was, "It's a really good story. You should write it into a book." Kind of doubted it for a while, sat on it for a few months because I wasn't sure if I could do it. And that first day when I sat down, and that cursor is blinking on the screen and it's challenging you to get started. Writing that first page was the hardest part. But after that, it was smooth. I never thought I would think that writing would be so relaxing, but it
Hmm.
is. I look forward to just coming home from work, sitting at my computer, and just going back to that world that I'm creating. To visit these characters and all the ups and downs that they must face, and trying to find the best way to relay that emotion into that writing. And so I think writing has been maybe the biggest reward of my life, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I have a similar feeling about it. It took me just forever to like be able to sit down and feel natural about it, right?
Hmm.
To just feel like what I'm writing comes from me and is me and can go onto the page. And so that's great. And I also am a full-time government worker, though not doing anything interesting.
I got you.
Yeah, and yeah, to that extent. I also find it very like fun and imaginative, and it's a way
Mhm.
to just be creative,
Yeah,
which is an outlet that I think, as you point out, when you're writing like federal government reports, um, you if you do that full time, you're writing all the time,
yeah.
like I do, and I do that as well. And I also review federal government reports all the time. And I think my favorite, if you've never done this, National Transportation Safety Board accident reports.
Okay.
So the National Transportation Safety Board will go out if there's some sort of catastrophic accident, and they will analyze every element of what caused the accident. And I have to be honest, if you wanted to start like a great novel, just like look up one of their accidents and what caused it, and then go back and describe it. You
Mm,
know what I mean? Like as an active element in the book. And you could write like a super fun book. And to that extent, I feel similarly. I think it's when you're doing that writing all day and you come home and you're like, oh man, you look at that cursor and the page is wide open, it tends to be a little intimidating initially,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
once you just let go, you can have
Hmm.
fun. And you just sort of accept that like nothing's going to be perfect,
Right.
but you can just enjoy yourself. Yeah.
Right. Right. And be okay with saying this isn't good enough. Let me start over. It's not good enough. Let me start over. One lesson I learned in writing the first book,
Yeah.
I would have like some really important scenes where I kind of knew the beginning and the end, but I needed to make the middle part, worthwhile. And I would struggle with that. And I would just get up, just start walking around and
Hmm.
have my music playing, and eventually the right song would play that would
Hmm.
remind me of the scene that I needed to write. Or it would remind me of a scene that I was planning on writing, 2 or 3 weeks from now. But
Hmm.
that one scene, that one song, I would play over and over and over, and it would start to play out in my mind like a music video.
Hmm.
Like I'm just watching it happen like a movie. And so I would just take my time and just keep listening to that one song over and over and over until in my mind I felt comfortable with it. And then whatever emotions that music put me in, I was then able to do my best to try to put that emotion into that scene.
Nice. I have a similar, it works very similar with me. I'll get up and I used to be able before it started snowing in Virginia again,
Yeah.
to go for a run and to like think about a scene and to like envision it as it would play out. And the other thing, there was a period where I was getting to drive back and forth to Baltimore,
Hmm.
and I would wake up very early and I'd get to crank music, and the roads would be they're relatively good on the parkway between DC and Baltimore
Hmm.
early in the morning. And I could listen to like the same soundtrack and just get in the mood to write and to craft it.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was writing my horror manuscript, which was about, like, and I would listen to Radiohead's Creep to like get that character and that emotional state of that character
Hmm.
captured. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand. I understand. There's a ironically, there are two scenes that I was struggling with in the
Mm,
second book. One is kind of like the big, without saying too much, the big battle scene in the second book, and I know how I wanted to start it
yeah.
and end it, but the different pieces, and I walked a couple of miles around my house, just trying to figure that out, and the ending of the book, this is the second book, I knew how I wanted to end it.
Yeah.
And I woke up one Saturday morning and I was gonna, just clean the house. And I started listening to some music on my phone, and this song comes on. I was like, hmm. And I listened to it again, and I'm listening to the song for the next 30 minutes to an hour. And then I spent the next 2 hours changing the end of my book just because
Hmm.
I just happened to hear that song.
What was the song, or is it going to give away the ending?
Yeah, it might give away the end. I will say, it's not as the artist that I was listening to isn't the artist that made the song. He was
Yeah.
doing a cover of the song, and it was very, very emotional. And so he had a
Okay.
hard time singing it, and it made writing the closure of the second book, hard, but it was rewarding. And
Yeah.
so I'm excited for people to read it. Um, I'm curious about what they would think about it,
Hmm.
especially after you read the first book and you get to this point in the second book, to see, the main character's state of mind at that point. So I've
Yeah.
been really looking forward to getting some feedback on that.
Interesting. Interesting. I'm in the middle of sort of a similar situation. I've outlined my current work in progress. My current work in progress is like a horror thriller set in a high school in Ohio. So
Okay.
you know how like movies like The Faculty with Jon Stewart, where the teachers are all aliens.
Okay.
I decided that like in reality, post COVID, the real scary people in high school are the kids.
Okay.
And I was like, you know who doesn't get enough credit? Um, Vice principals. Vice principals deal with all sorts of mayhem. And one of the dad literati, like one of the fans of the show, is a vice principal who's based in Pittsburgh, he does like a weekly book review.
Okay.
And he's called Saturday Book Dad. And so, I asked him, what is like goes through the mind of a vice principal? Like
Hmm.
what is like the vice principal? And he explained it to me in this very interesting way. He said, the vice principal is responsible for everything. And at the same time, um, uh, only answers to one person, which is the principal.
Hmm.
So you can't, if you're a vice principal, you can't go in the teacher's lounge because you're part of management, right?
Right. Okay.
But you also work directly with the teachers with dealing with, for example, student discipline.
Hmm.
And then you have this other role that goes underappreciated, which is that you are also responsible for the safety of the facility itself. So I came to the conclusion that high school vice principals are sort of a linchpin of the entire there. Oh, I like to joke that like colonels
Hmm.
are in this weird position where they have all the responsibility and they also have to eat all of the failure.
Right.
And that's why they're always mad at everybody.
Yeah.
Because once you get to the position of general, you're just dealing with colonels, and
Yeah,
colonels have to deal with everybody, and they
man.
just hate that.
That is funny you said that. I I'll just say there's a part in my book where my main character gets his butt chewed out really good by a colonel.
Yeah, this is a funny thing. We're always joking. Like for some reason, whoever takes, there's always a colonel who's taking over a country. You know what I mean? Like, and you try to explain it to people. It's like, well, that's because the general doesn't actually talk to anyone below the colonel level. The colonel has all sorts of people that he
Right.
talks to, along with other colonels.
Hmm.
So he's actually in a much better position to mobilize the troops. A general's not going to call a lieutenant
Right.
and take over the capital.
Right.
So so to that extent, I'm I'm trying to like get into an interesting perspective in that regard.
Hmm.
And I also set it back before cell phones became ubiquitous. So I set it back in like 2003 when I was
Okay.
in high school.
Okay.
And then I'm like, oh shit, I have to go back and find songs that are relevant to like a high school kid circa 2002,
Mm.
which is the weirdest thing in the world because you listen to those songs, you're like, I could have sworn this song was older.
I don't I don't know what to tell you.
Oh man, I
2002. Uh,
2000 no, so you want to know how old 2001 is?
okay.
2001. Enrique Iglesias' Hero came out in 2001. I bet you think that came out in the 90s with the
That's what I
video
would have
with
guessed,
him and
yeah.
Jennifer Love Hewitt. I was like, I thought Enrique Iglesias was like in his 50s by the time I was in high school. Nope, that's when it came out. And I was
Uh,
like, man, I have to now go back and do all those old songs.
yeah. Good luck with that one. I don't know what to tell you. I would have to Google that one.
So you sat down to write it. What are your favorite thriller authors?
I'll be honest with you. For this, I wasn't an avid reader, to be honest with
No,
you.
you're
Was not.
you're not in a small club of people in
Yeah.
that regard. That's what the Dad Lit Pod is all about. Like dads just there aren't just books for
Yeah.
dads to read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, when I sat down to figure out how am I gonna do this,
Yep.
because my character is an OSI agent,
Yep.
I thought, well, where can I go just to peek at how I should, structure this thing. And, the name just jumped out at me, Jack Reacher.
Hmm.
Similar, he was, Army, CID. So I just wanted, how was his structure? So I did, I went through a little bit of that. Really good, really good. I just want to get an idea of how do I start this?
Hmm.
Because it seemed like a mountain that was at the time too high to climb. But then I
Hmm.
realized it just has to be me. It just has to be
Hmm.
me. And, you know, a million mistakes were made writing it, and then when you do the self-publishing, 20 more million mistakes made. I'd just rather sit down and write every day. The self-publishing part could be a bit of a headache.
Yeah, but the cover looks great.
Oh, I
And
appreciate it.
and the second cover looks good as well.
Thank you, thank you.
Who
Yeah,
who's the lady on so Raven Shadow.
yeah.
Well, Shadow 1 has a gentleman and a lady, and the and well Raven Shadow has a lady, and Shadow 1 has a gentleman and a lady.
Yeah.
Who's the lady in the Raven Shadow?
And the Raven Shadow, that is Khadija. She is a Nigerian intelligence agent, and
Nice.
her and our main character Devin have a bit of a romantic relationship, but mostly they have a really on and off working relationship because of their romantic relationship, where one person thinks it's something that it's not, and it
Hmm.
affects whether or not she's going to help him, and
Yep.
she's throwing it in his face every opportunity that she can. Even though she knows, what she needs to do, which is help him, you know, come to the conclusion of the mission, but no. She's not going along willingly until she absolutely has to.
That's awesome. The in my thriller that I'm trying to sell, the agent is or the one of the protagonists is former diplomatic security service in Abuja. And I did that because my wife spent a ton of time in Abuja in her
Yeah.
last job, and we almost moved to Abuja. And I just thought it was really funny that the whole city is set up to look exactly like Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This the Raven Shadow is set in Abuja.
Is it really? So you got
Yeah.
the three rocks in there and everything.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
um the the first book, yeah, like I said, 65%, most of it happened. A lot of the second book happened, but it is
Yep.
more fictional. But the true events that happened that I incorporated into the second book actually happened in Burkina Faso, which is represented in
Oh.
the book, and in Mali. But because they speak French, I
Hmm.
decided to move, the meat of the story over to Nigeria because they speak English, and it would have just made it, a little bit easier and
Yeah.
would have made more sense. So that's how we got to Abuja. She's a Nigerian agent stationed at the U.S. Embassy, as
Hmm.
as a liaison. And so what has happened in the second book is an American airman has vanished. And
Hmm.
so Devin is on a mission, working with his counterpart Khadija to figure out where is this airman being held. And it
Hmm.
turns out that there are two rival warlords that are going at each other. They've always had respect for each other, but now one of them wants to kill the American, and one of them wants to hold him so we can figure out what's the best play. And
Hmm.
Devin has to figure out number one, where's the guy, and then convince these warlords to be on his side and to help the Americans. But they're not
Nice.
trying to hear it because they see him and they're saying, "Well, you look like us, but you're not one of us. Your ancestors were from here, but you're not from here. So all we see when we look at you is American." And
Yep.
so he's got this argument that he's going uh back and forth with these guys as he's trying to get them to help him. And at the same time, his biggest ally, Khadija, is really pissed off at it because of some things that he said where she may have thought there was a certain type of relationship happening, so he's got to convince a lot of people to help him on this
Nice, nice. Yeah, that like interior triangle between Nigeria, I believe Sierra Leone and Chad
one.
has all sorts of chaos going on. And not the least of which is Boko Haram, obviously.
Yeah.
And I also set some scenes there
Yeah. Yeah.
because there's a lot of stuff going on over there,
Yeah.
man. Yep,
Yeah.
yep,
So yeah, one of the warlords happens to be connected to Boko Haram,
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, I'm sure you've been to Abuja.
Briefly.
Yeah, yeah.
I was traveling through, but most of my time, so I think I've been to 12 countries in Africa,
Hmm.
and I've only been to Nigeria briefly. So most of
Hmm.
my time was Burkina Faso, some time in Mali, Senegal. I'm forgetting the other country I spent. It's right on the coast. Ghana. I'm sorry, Ghana.
Ghana, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Ghana's nice though.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. It is. I went in December. The weather was beautiful.
Yep. We the wife and I, right before COVID, were almost voluntold to go to Abuja. But COVID complicated matters.
I got you.
Um, and so my experience, I've been to Morocco
Hmm.
and flew through Ethiopia. Hopefully one day get to go to Ethiopia
Yeah.
because just everything. First of all, I like Ethiopian food. I got a place right across the street
Oh
that
yeah.
yeah that I go all the time, and and it's been taken over by new ownership, so they actually do the raw meat dish now.
Ooh,
They don't just do the darwat and like the tibs. So yeah,
raw meat, huh?
they do the whole range,
Yeah.
and uh, and then other than that, I went to South Africa, which I just loved, man. South Africa's
Hmm.
prettiest country I've ever been in my
I
entire.
want to go. I haven't been there. I got
Oh
a chance to
man.
spend a couple days in Kenya, and
Hmm.
that was really nice.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Africa's so beautiful.
Hmm.
And I mean, it just it looks so dynamic, like it people compare like South Africa to Montana.
Hmm.
But I've been out west to the Rockies, and it's just like it's got like just really fascinating like alluvial mountains and stuff like that. It's just so cool.
Yeah.
Just an incredibly cool place.
Yeah. I would love to go. I watch a lot of videos and the culture seems so amazing. I love the music. I think those
Hmm.
people in South Africa have the most beautiful singing voices I've ever heard.
Hmm. Yeah, it's so cool. You should definitely go. It takes fucking forever to get there. It takes so long to get there. It was like that's a day is just
Yeah.
getting there. Yep.
Yeah.
That is the one problem I had. It's just it took so long to get there. But I went when my wife was at a conference and just had the best time of my life.
Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
I drove on the left side of the road like a lunatic too. And everyone's like, wait, you're gonna drive? Have you driven on the left side of the road? I'm like, yeah, I got this international driver's license. This says I can do it. I looked it up. Yeah.
Mm.
So, so anyway, Derek, plug your two books for the dad literati. What are the dad literati gonna get from Shadow One, Book One, and Book Two?
Well, with the Shadow One, Book One, and Book Two, you're gonna get an inside look at what it takes to become an OSI special agent,
Mm-hmm.
what they do on a daily basis, and how they manage the drama from their personal lives with the drama that they get from work. Because you never know who's going to be on the other side of that door when the bell rings, or who's going to be on the other side of that phone when it starts ringing, and you may be sitting there watching a funny show on television, but there's a couple of people that have been murdered on the other side of the base, or there's some terrorist activity that you need to respond to. Uh, so you're going to get an inside look at what it takes to be an agent, how they operate. Uh, in the second book, we're going to talk about some counterintelligence skills, some of the surveillance detection, and you're going to see how these people have to be able to move within hours. Something
Mm-hmm.
happens, you see it on television. 2 hours later, the phone rings. 2 hours after that, you're on the plane and you're heading, to the other side of the world. So the
Mm-hmm.
second book is it's really fast paced, and I think you're going to enjoy the journey of the main character from being just Devin to starting to turn into Shadow One.
Well, that's awesome, Derek. Thank you so much for coming on the Dad Lit Pod. That's Derek Jackson. His book Shadow One and Book Two, The Raven Shadow, Shadow One Volume Two. That's Derek M. Jackson. Go and check him out. And links to his website. And you're on Amazon, right, Derek?
Yes, sir, on Amazon.
And on Amazon will all be in the description. This is Dan Roberts. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you very much, Dan. Appreciate it.
This has been an episode of the Dadlit Pod.
Our time together has come to an end. It's time to return to your wife, kids, and friends. It's time to pick up those books you forgot while you wait for the next Dad Lit Pod.